A stone doorway perfectly frames the rising sun just once a year. This is the hidden genius of ancient observatories, a lost science where architecture became a permanent clock for the sky. By the end of this journey, you will see every ancient ruin not as a pile of stones, but as a deliberate, engineered model of the cosmos. How did builders without modern tools design structures to track celestial cycles longer than a human lifetime? What secret knowledge is cemented into the alignment of a pyramid's shaft or the window of a forgotten tower? We are about to decode how entire civilizations turned their greatest buildings into celestial calendars, merging stone with the stars. What does it say about us that our ancestors built monuments not just for their time, but for time itself? That single moment of perfect alignment is the key to everything. It reveals a profound and deliberate choice made by ancient architects, a choice that goes far beyond simple worship or decoration. The foundational principle at work here is that these builders were using architecture as a permanent, physical model of the sky itself. They were not just building temples to look at the heavens, they were building temples that were the heavens cast in stone. Think of it this way: if your calendar is made of paper, it will fade and tear, but if your calendar is made of 10-ton granite blocks, it can last for millennia. This is what experts call architectural astronomy, the seamless fusion of cosmology and construction. The structure itself becomes the scientific instrument, a durable recording device for tracking cycles longer than any single human life. This required an immense depth of knowledge. Builders had to understand not just the sun's daily rise and set, but its slow, yearly migration between the solstice points. They had to grasp the moon's more complex dance, which completes a major cycle only once every 18.6 years. They even accounted for the slow wobble of the Earth's axis, a grand celestial shift called precession that unfolds over 26,000 years. With this knowledge, they could engineer moments of breathtaking precision. A narrow slit in a wall, for instance, might be positioned so that the light of the rising sun touches a carved marker on the far wall for just a few days each year. Or, even more astonishingly, a specific beam of light might fall on a sacred altar only once every 52 years, marking a complete cycle in their long-count calendar. In this way, static, immovable stone was transformed into a dynamic, ticking clock, a machine for measuring eternity. This was the grand ambition, to make the fleeting permanence of the sky permanent in the solidity of the Earth. But how did they possibly achieve such pinpoint accuracy without the tools we take for granted? This solar calendar was not just a tool, it was a public spectacle. Across the ancient world, architects mastered the art of turning sunlight into a ceremonial event. At a place like Choco Canyon in the American Southwest, a remarkable feature known as the sun dagger reveals this principle in action. High on a cliff face, 3 stone slabs were positioned with such care that, for only a few minutes on the summer solstice, a dagger of sunlight pierces the center of a spiral petroglyph carved into the rock behind them. It is a fleeting moment of perfect alignment, a union of human art and celestial motion that happens with clockwork regularity. On the other side of the world, the great temple of Ammon at Karnak in Egypt was designed as a massive solar instrument. Its main axis was aligned so that during the winter solstice, the rising sun would shine directly down the lengthy hypostyle hall, illuminating the inner sanctuary where the statue of the god resided. This annual event transformed the entire stone complex into a conduit for divine light, reaffirming the pharaoh's connection to the cosmic order for all to witness. Achieving this precision required a deep, practical understanding of the sun's behavior, a concept we call solar declination. In simple terms, the sun does not rise in the same spot every day. Throughout the year, its rising point on the horizon marches northward to a limit at the summer solstice. then back south to the winter solstice, with the equinoxes marking the midpoint. To lock a building to one of these celestial turning points, ancient observers had to watch this slow dance for generations. They needed to identify that precise, seemingly stationary point on the horizon where the sun would rise for a few days before appearing to reverse its course. Marking that point with a stone, a notch in a distant mountain, or an opposing pillar gave them a permanent, unchanging reference. Then they could design their corridor, window, or gateway to frame that exact location. This transformed an abstract astronomical event into a tangible, communal experience. When the dawn light finally streamed through that engineered opening to strike its target, it was a shared confirmation. The seasons were turning on schedule, the gods were pleased, and the community's place in the cosmic cycle was secure. But what about the moon with its more complex and mysterious rhythms? The moon presented a far greater puzzle than the sun. Its path across the sky is a complex 18.6-year dance, a cycle so long that a single observer might witness its full pattern only once in a lifetime. To track this, ancient builders developed a second, astonishing technique, aligning their monuments to the moon's most extreme positions, known as the major and minor standstills. While a solar alignment marks an annual appointment, a lunar standstill alignment is a generational covenant, a promise carved in stone for future minds to witness. This required a depth of patience we can scarcely comprehend today. It meant observing the moon's slow creep along the horizon, noting its northernmost and southernmost rising points over decades, and then committing that knowledge to architecture. The builders were, in effect, plotting a celestial event they themselves might never see come to full fruition again. A powerful example stands on the Isle of Lewis in Scotland, at the Callanish Stones, often called the Stonehenge of the North. Here, a long avenue of towering stones points toward the southern horizon. Every 18.6 years, at the major lunar standstill, the full moon can be seen to rise, perfectly framed between these ancient pillars before skimming low across the sky. This was not a casual observation. It was a meticulously engineered spectacle designed for a cycle that transcends human memory. This practice reveals something profound about these societies. They were not just marking time for practical seasons, they were building libraries of celestial knowledge in stone. The ability to predict these lunar extremes was likely intertwined with understanding eclipse cycles, as eclipses can only occur when the sun and moon meet at specific points in their overlapping rhythms. This granted the keepers of such sites a kind of prophetic power, the ability to foresee the moon's most dramatic moments of being swallowed by shadow. It transformed the observatory from a simple calendar into a center of esoteric wisdom, where the slow heartbeat of the cosmos could be measured and, in a sense, anticipated. This generational project raises a haunting question: what happens when the knowledge to read these stone clocks is lost? But the most patient alignment of all was reserved for the stars themselves. A narrow shaft deep within a pyramid might point toward a star that has not occupied that position in the sky for over 4,000 years. This is the domain of stellar alignments, and it introduces the most profound celestial clock of them all, the great wobble of the Earth's axis known as precession. This cycle unfolds over 26,000 years, a timescale so vast it makes the moon's 18-year dance seem brief. For an ancient astronomer, precession meant that the entire backdrop of the night sky was slowly, imperceptibly drifting. The pole star, the anchor of the heavens, was not a fixed point, but a title passed from one star to another over millennia. To align a monument to a specific star, therefore, was to freeze a celestial moment in stone, creating a timestamp that future civilizations could read. The most famous candidate for this is found in the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its narrow, so-called air shafts, which angled precisely upward from the king's and queen's chambers, are theorized to have pointed directly toward important stars around the time of the pyramid's construction. One shaft is aligned with Thuban, a star in the constellation Draco, which served as the North Pole star around 2,500 years before the Common Era. Today, because of precession, that shaft points to empty space. This is not an error, it is a feature. It tells us the exact epoch the builders were modeling. It means they were not just observing the sky for a single lifetime, but were part of a sustained astronomical tradition that could track the heavens' gradual drift across generations. This practice wove mythology directly into architecture. A constellation associated with a god or a myth of creation would be given a permanent home in the design of a temple. The building became a terrestrial map of a specific celestial arrangement, connecting the ruler or the rituals performed there to the eternal, unchanging realm of the stars. Of course, the stars were not unchanging at all, but their shift was so slow it represented a kind of eternal truth within a human time frame. By locking their greatest monuments to these drifting lights, ancient cultures were attempting to anchor their legacy to the cosmos itself. Yet this raises a final, compelling mystery. If their buildings were such precise instruments, what were they truly trying to measure or predict that required such monumental effort? The true genius of these builders lies not just in what they constructed, but in what they chose not to. Instead of fighting the landscape, they saw the natural world as the most stable foundation for their celestial clocks. This practice, known as horizon astronomy, transformed entire mountains and valleys into the fixed components of a giant observatory. A distant peak became a permanent marker, a notch between two hills a perfect frame, and the curve of a river a mirror for the sky. By using these eternal features, they could engineer alignments on a scale no human-built structure could ever match, and with a durability that would outlast any wooden tool. This was astronomy in harmony with the Earth, a recognition that the cosmos was not just above them, but woven into the very terrain they called home. Nowhere is this symbiotic relationship more brilliantly displayed than at Machu Picchu, the lost city of the Inca, nestled high in the Andes. Here, architecture and mountainscape are fused into a single instrument. The famous Intihuatana stone, often called the hitching post of the sun, is not an isolated artifact. It is the central node in a vast network of sightlines. On the June solstice, the sun rises directly over a specific sacred peak known as Huayna Picchu, and its first rays would have struck the precisely carved stone. In the Temple of the Sun, a trapezoidal window is aligned so that the rising sun of the December solstice shines through it, illuminating a ceremonial niche within. But the key is that these alignments do not rely solely on the buildings themselves. The windows and stones are positioned to use the distant, immutable horizon as their reference. The builders identified which mountain notch, which silhouette against the dawn, marked the sun's turning points, and then they constructed their architecture to celebrate that pre-existing celestial relationship. This approach offered profound advantages. First, it was incredibly stable. A mountain does not settle or shift like a stone wall might over centuries. A horizon alignment, once calibrated, remains true for millennia. Second, it allowed for astonishing precision over vast distances. An observer at one point could signal to another miles away when a star appeared over a designated peak, creating a long baseline for measurement that improved accuracy. And third, it dramatically reduced the complexity of construction. Why build two massive pillars to frame the solstice sunrise when two natural peaks already do the job perfectly? The architect's role became one of careful selection and subtle enhancement, placing a marker here, a window there, to highlight the cosmic drama already written into the landscape. This holistic vision reveals a mindset where the environment was not a backdrop, but an active participant in the cosmic order. The river mirrored the Milky Way, the mountains touched the path of the sun, and the stones were anchors to hold it all in place. Their observatory was the world itself. Yet this deep integration with nature presents us with a fascinating puzzle. If the landscape was so essential to their celestial science, how did they translate that intimate, local knowledge into a portable system, a science that could be taught, replicated, and used to unite an empire? The stone itself was the final and perhaps most critical component of this ancient science. To preserve a celestial alignment for 1,000 years, you cannot build with wood that rots or clay that erodes. You must think in geological time, choosing materials and methods that can outlast empires. This was not merely a matter of aesthetic grandeur, it was a fundamental requirement of their astronomical mission. The choice of granite, basalt, and limestone across cultures was a deliberate engineering decision. These are stones that laugh at rain, resist the slow creep of vegetation, and stand unyielding against the push of centuries. The Maya, for example, cut their limestone blocks with such precision that they fit together without mortar, creating structures whose alignments remain true despite the jungle's relentless reclamation. In Egypt, the inner cores of temples and the narrow shafts of pyramids were lined with granite, one of the hardest stones on Earth, chosen specifically to maintain the exact angles needed to channel starlight. This pursuit of permanence went far beyond the material itself, extending to how these massive stones were placed. The great trilithons of Stonehenge, for instance, were anchored in deep pits with packed chalk and stone foundations, a method designed to prevent the slightest tilt or settlement. A shift of even a single degree over centuries would render a precise solstice alignment meaningless. By setting their monuments on stable bedrock or engineering sophisticated foundations, these builders were creating a stable platform, a fixed reference frame in a shifting world. In essence, they were building the most durable scientific instrument imaginable. The architecture became a kind of fossilized intelligence, a data storage system written not on parchment, but in the very bones of the earth. The alignment was the message, and the 10-ton block was the medium guaranteed to deliver it across the abyss of time. This reveals a breathtaking level of foresight. They were not just building for their children or even their grandchildren. They were building for civilizations yet unborn, for observers who would stand in their footsteps millennia later and witness the same sunbeam piercing the same dark corridor on the same day. It was an act of faith in both the eternal cycles of the cosmos and the enduring curiosity of the human mind. But with the blueprint set in indestructible stone, how did they actually perform the delicate, real-time work of observation and calculation that informed these grand designs? But the alignment of a building is only the first layer of its celestial code. To truly safeguard their knowledge, ancient architects wove astronomy into the very fabric of their designs, using sacred geometry to encode cosmic numbers into stone. This went far beyond where a building pointed. It was about the shape and size of the building itself, the proportions of a temple, the length of a corridor, even the number of stones in a wall could hold mathematical secrets reflecting the cycles of the heavens. It was a brilliant, multi-layered system of information storage. If an alignment was ever blocked by a later construction or a shifting landscape, the core data remained, locked securely within the structure's immutable geometry. Consider the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its base perimeter, when measured in the ancient Egyptian unit known as the royal cubit, relates remarkably to the solar year. There is a compelling theory that the pyramid's designers intentionally made the perimeter equal to 1,760 cubits, a number that mirrors 365.24, the number of days in a tropical year when a specific mathematical transformation is applied. Whether this precise relationship was intentional is debated, but the principle is clear across cultures. Builders used dimensions to echo cosmic constants. In this way, the pyramid was not just aligned to the stars, it was a physical model of time itself, its very shape a silent statement about the Earth's journey around the sun. This practice required a sophisticated yet beautifully simple toolkit. The primary instruments were likely ropes, wooden pegs, and an intuitive grasp of geometry. With a rope and 2 stakes, you can create a perfect circle. By bisecting that circle and employing ratios like the golden mean or pi, you can generate a cascade of harmonious proportions. These ratios were not arbitrary. They were observed in nature, from the spiral of a nautilus shell to the arrangement of seeds in a sunflower, and were thus seen as divine principles governing the cosmos. By embedding these same ratios into their architecture, builders were making their structures resonate with the fundamental order of the universe. A window's height to its width might reflect a planetary orbital ratio, or the distance between pillars might encode a lunar cycle number. The knowledge became intrinsic, a part of the building's DNA. This geometrical encoding acted as a profound backup system for celestial data. Imagine a society faces a period of hardship where the careful oral traditions of sky watching are interrupted. Generations later, when stability returns, the old observatory stands, but its sightlines are overgrown. Yet, if the new priests or scholars can measure the building, they can rediscover the lost numbers, the ratios of the year or the moon's phases, etched permanently into the stonework. The structure itself becomes a teacher, offering up its secrets to anyone who knows how to measure and calculate. This reveals an astonishing foresight, a plan for knowledge transmission that could survive the dark ages of human memory. The alignment captured a single celestial event, but the geometry captured the eternal rule behind it. It was their way of making sure the song of the cosmos, once learned, could never be truly forgotten. Yet the true power of these stone clocks was not in their silent observation, but in how they brought entire civilizations to life. Building a monument to track a 26,000-year cycle required more than brilliant astronomy. It demanded a societal engine of staggering scale. Think of the immense coordination, the feeding of thousands of workers, the quarrying and transport of stones weighing more than 50 tons. This was not the work of a scattered village. It was the signature of a unified culture, a civilization that could marshal its people and resources toward a single, generational goal. At its core, the Observatory project was a powerful tool for social cohesion. It gave a diverse and growing population a shared story, a common calendar, and a collective purpose that transcended individual lifespan. The authority to stand before the people and declare, based on the alignment of the sacred stones, that the sun had officially turned back from its winter retreat, or that the moon would soon be shadowed, was a power beyond that of any mere king. It was the power to interpret the will of the cosmos itself. This knowledge was carefully guarded by a class of priest astronomers, whose ability to predict celestial events cemented their role as essential intermediaries between the community and the gods. Their predictions validated the entire social order, from the timing of planting and harvest to the legitimacy of the ruler who claimed a divine mandate. But the unifying force went far deeper than elite authority. The very act of construction was a communal ritual that forged a shared destiny. Imagine generations of families contributing their labor, not for a wall that would protect them in their own lifetime, but for a celestial machine whose full purpose they might never personally witness. This required and fostered a profound sense of legacy, a belief that they were building for their grandchildren's grandchildren, weaving their own effort into the eternal fabric of the cosmos. Once completed, these sites did not sit in isolation. They became the beating hearts of civilization. At places like Stonehenge on the Salisbury Plain or Chichen Itza in the Yucatan, the solstice alignments drew pilgrims from across the land. These gatherings transformed astronomical events into vast festivals of trade, diplomacy, and shared cultural identity. Knowledge flowed along with goods as astronomer priests from distant regions compared observations and refined their models. The observatory, therefore, was never just a scientific instrument. It was a civic center, a religious sanctuary, an economic hub, and a living library. It anchored the entire societal structure to a celestial narrative, telling people not only when to plant, but who they were in the grand story of the universe. This deep integration raises a final, poignant question. What happens to a society when the sky it built for, and the story it told itself, begins to change? There is a tomb in Ireland that holds a secret of light. Newgrange, a massive, grass-covered mound built over 5,000 years ago, stands as one of the world's oldest and most sophisticated observatories, predating even the Great Pyramids of Egypt. Its design centers on a single, breathtaking phenomenon. Above the entrance sits a small, carefully crafted opening called a roof box. For 17 minutes each year, around dawn on the winter solstice, a slender beam of sunlight pierces this opening. It travels down a 60-foot-long, perfectly dark passageway to finally flood the inner chamber with golden light, a chamber that otherwise rests in perpetual darkness. This is not a happy accident of architecture. It is a deliberate, engineered miracle, a fusion of stone, sunlight, and celestial timing that reveals the pinnacle of Neolithic genius. To achieve this, the builders had to solve a complex series of problems. First, they selected a site with a specific horizon. The rising sun on the solstice had to clear a particular point in the distant landscape to even be visible. Then they engineered the entire structure as a light conduit. The passage itself is not straight in a simple sense. It is precisely angled to capture the sun at its lowest, weakest point in the yearly cycle. The roof box is not just a hole, it is a constructed channel with a sill stone to block light from the higher summer sun, ensuring the effect is exclusive to the deepest winter days. Every element, from the orientation of the massive curbstones to the corbelled roof that keeps the passage dry and dark for millennia, serves this one luminous purpose. This was architecture as a precise optical instrument, calibrated to an annual celestial appointment with unerring accuracy. The meaning of this event is as profound as its engineering. In the depths of winter, when days are shortest and the world seems gripped by cold and darkness, this tomb becomes a theater of rebirth. The returning sun, symbolizing life and warmth, is seen to penetrate the realm of the ancestors, the inner chamber. It creates a tangible link between the cycles of the cosmos, the memory of those who came before, and the living community that witnessed the event. This alignment served multiple vital functions at once. Spiritually, it was a powerful ritual of renewal, a reassurance that the sun would always return. Calendrically, it was the ultimate New Year's marker, a fixed point from which to measure the lengthening days ahead. Socially, it would have been a gathering of immense importance, uniting the community around a shared, awe-inspiring spectacle that validated their place in the natural order. Newgrange is a perfect case study because it encapsulates all our principles in one majestic site. It uses the natural horizon as its fixed reference. It employs durable stone construction to preserve the alignment across hundreds of generations. It encodes a deep understanding of the solar cycle into a single, unforgettable experience. And it demonstrates how astronomical knowledge was woven into the very fabric of spiritual and communal life. This was not a science for its own sake, it was a science for the soul and the society. It makes us wonder what other profound connections between light, stone, and ceremony are waiting to be rediscovered in the silent mounds and standing stones scattered across the world. While Newgrange captures the sun at its weakest point, another civilization was mastering a far more elusive target. In the dense jungles of the Yucatan Peninsula, the Maya built an observatory unlike any other. The Karakol at Chichen Itza, a strange, spiraling tower that looks more like a modern observatory dome than a classic temple, stands as a testament to a singular obsession, the planet Venus. For the Maya, Venus was not just a bright star, it was a god, a harbinger of war, and a key to their most sacred calendars. tracking its complex 584-day cycle with extreme accuracy was a matter of spiritual and political survival. The Karakol is the stone embodiment of that pursuit, a purpose-built machine for watching a single, wandering point of light. Its design is a masterclass in focused astronomical engineering. The tower is round, a rarity in Maya architecture, which allowed for unobstructed 360-degree views of the horizon. High up, its walls are narrow, slit-like windows, not for letting in light but for creating precise sightlines. These windows are not placed at random. They are angled with incredible care to frame Venus at its most extreme northern and southern setting points on the horizon. An observer inside would use these stone apertures like the crosshairs of a telescope, waiting for the moment the brilliant planet slid into view within the narrow frame, confirming its predicted position in the sky. But the genius of the Karakol does not stop at Venus. The entire building is also aligned to the Sun. Its main staircase and certain sightlines are oriented to capture the sunsets on the equinoxes, those 2 days of perfect balance in the solar year. This creates a structure of remarkable duality, a single monument that serves as both a solar calendar and a planetary tracker. This integrated planning reveals an advanced, layered understanding of the cosmos. The Maya were not just observing individual bodies, they were mapping the relationships between them, seeing how the cycles of the Sun and Venus intertwined within their complex calendar systems. The very form of the Karakol, its circular tower rising from a rectangular platform, speaks to this fusion of celestial cycles. It represents an evolution in thought, moving from the grand, generalized solar alignments of earlier eras to a more precise, almost scientific, targeting of specific celestial objects. Here, architecture adapted to the specific needs of observation, becoming a specialized tool. The building's form follows its celestial function, proving that for these ancient astronomers, beauty was found in perfect utility, in a window that framed a god's appointed path with stone-cold certainty. Yet a single brilliant observation dies with the person who made it. The true challenge for these ancient astronomers was not just seeing the patterns in the sky, but preserving that hard-won data across generations, transforming a fleeting celestial event into a permanent line in stone. How do you turn the slow creep of a shadow or the precise point of a star's rising into the blueprint for a temple that will stand for 1,000 years? This translation from observation to architecture was the silent, meticulous work that happened long before the first foundation stone was laid. It required a bridge between two worlds, the fluid, dynamic realm of the sky and the fixed, solid reality of the earth. The tools for this work were deceptively simple. A straight pole planted in level ground, known as a gnomon, was one of the most powerful instruments ever devised. By meticulously tracking the length and direction of its shadow throughout the day and across the seasons, an observer could map the sun's entire yearly journey. The shortest shadow of the day marked local noon, while the longest shadows of the year, cast at noon on the solstices, gave the critical angles needed for alignment. For night work, a still pool of water in a dark basin could act as a perfect mirror for the stars, creating a stable, reflective plane to measure their positions against fixed landmarks on the horizon. These horizon markers themselves were the permanent anchors of the system. A priest astronomer might spend years, even a lifetime, confirming that a specific notch between two distant hills was the true rising point of the midwinter sun. That notch then became a celestial fixture, a natural monument more reliable than any human-made signpost. Once identified, these key points on the land and in the sky had to be recorded. In cultures without widespread writing, this was achieved through a blend of memory, myth, and physical tokens. The Inca used the quipu, a complex system of knotted cords where the position, color, and type of knot could encode numerical data, possibly including astronomical cycles. Others may have used marked sticks, painted hides, or patterns etched into clay, all serving as portable, if fragile, databases of celestial timings. But the final and most critical step was the survey. This was the moment of translation where abstract knowledge became physical reality. Using ropes of standardized length, wooden stakes, and a profound understanding of geometry, the master builders would transfer the angles from the sky to the ground. They might stretch a cord from the central gnommon's position to a stake placed at the end of a solstice shadow, establishing a foundational line. Or they might use the ancient method of peg and cord geometry to create perfect right angles and alignments from that primary axis. This process transformed temporal rhythm into spatial form. The 18.6-year swing of the moon became the measured width between two monoliths. The sun's solstice path became the orientation of a grand corridor. This was not merely technical drafting, it was a sacred act of inscription, a ritual where the community's deepest understanding of cosmic order was literally laid into the earth. The blueprint was born from a conversation between the watching eye, the marking hand, and the remembering voice, a collaboration across time that turned whispered star lore into the silent, enduring language of stone. So how can we be certain that a shaft in a pyramid pointed to a star, or that a window was meant for Venus? The leap from noticing a possible alignment to proving it was deliberate is where modern science enters the ancient temple. This is the realm of archaeoastronomy, a field that acts as a translator between the silent stones and the moving sky, using rigorous mathematics to separate genuine celestial design from hopeful coincidence. Its first task is to strip away our modern assumptions. An ancient builder did not think in terms of magnetic north or our precise calendar dates. They worked with the local horizon, the cycles they could see, and their own cultural framework for time. To step into their perspective, researchers now use sophisticated tools. High-precision GPS and digital theodolites measure the exact orientation of a wall or passageway down to a fraction of a degree. This gives them the azimuth, which is simply the compass bearing of that alignment, say 62 degrees east of true north, but that number alone is meaningless without the sky. So next, using astronomical software, they digitally wind back the clock. They reconstruct the precise positions of the sun, moon, and stars on the horizon for the date the structure was built, accounting for the slow wobble of precession over millennia. This allows them to calculate the declination, the celestial latitude, of what that alignment would have pointed toward. Was it the winter solstice sun? The rising point of the bright star Sirius, the southernmost extreme of the moon, the software can show them, yet a single alignment could still be luck. The true power of archaeoastronomy lies in statistics. By surveying dozens, even hundreds of temples or tombs within a culture, researchers look for patterns. If 90% of a civilization's ceremonial structures face within a few degrees of the summer solstice sunrise, the probability that this happened by random chance plummets to near zero. This is the evidentiary gold standard. We see this clearly with the Maya. A survey of their pyramids reveals an overwhelming preference for orientations that align with the sun's passage directly overhead, known as the zenith passage, on specific dates crucial to their agricultural cycle. This is not a vague spiritual gesture toward the east. It is a precise, repeated, and culturally significant engineering choice. This scientific lens changes everything. It transforms a mysterious stone circle from a potential ritual site into a calibrated lunar observatory. It turns a pyramid's odd angle from a construction error into a deliberate timestamp for a specific pole star. By applying this rigorous methodology, we move beyond romantic speculation and into a space of evidenced appreciation. We are no longer just projecting our stories onto the past. We are listening to the stories the builders deliberately encoded, written in the immutable language of azimuth and declination, waiting centuries for someone to learn how to read them again. That scientific certainty brings us to a profound and beautiful crossroads. A narrow window that channels a beam of light is a precise astronomical instrument, but the chamber it illuminates may be called the womb of creation. This is the central puzzle in understanding these sites, the delicate dance between function and symbolism. Were these structures high-precision celestial calculators, or were they symbolic representations of a cosmic myth? The compelling truth is, for the ancient mind, this was a false choice. Their architecture was designed to be both at once, a physical machine that also served as a spiritual metaphor. This duality is the key to unlocking their full meaning. Take the great ziggurats of Mesopotamia, those towering stepped pyramids that rose from the plains. On a purely functional level, their immense height provided an unobstructed platform for observing the stars far above the dust of the city. Priests could track the movements of planets against a clear, dark sky. Yet the very name ziggurat means to build high, and they were understood as stairways to the gods, literal bridges between the earthly and the divine realms. The act of climbing them was a ritual ascent, a symbolic journey toward the heavens that mirrored the astronomical observations made at the summit. The structure did not have one purpose, it had layers of purpose woven together like a tapestry. The science gave the ritual its timing and authority, while the ritual gave the science its meaning and cultural power. This is why disentangling these threads is so challenging for modern researchers. We live in a world that often separates the laboratory from the temple, but ancient cultures saw them as the same place. A building could simultaneously be an observatory for marking the solstice, a temple for performing a ceremony of renewal at that exact moment, and a permanent stone symbol of the community's belief in a cyclical universe. The alignment itself was multivalent. The sun's ray striking an altar was a calendar event, a divine blessing, and a theatrical spectacle that reinforced social order, all happening in the same beam of light. To interpret these sites, we must therefore engage in a kind of binocular vision. One lens examines the hard data of alignments, the mathematics of declination, and the engineering of sightlines. The other lens looks into the myths, the art, the texts, and the artifacts found within the structure. Only by bringing both views into focus can we see the complete picture. For instance, a pyramid shaft aligned with the pole star might be a functional timestamp, but if that star was associated with a god of the afterlife in their texts, then the alignment also becomes a symbolic pathway for the soul. The architecture was their grand unified theory, a place where measurement and meaning were built from the same stone. The most convincing proof of their scientific intent is not found in perfection, but in their corrections. Archaeologists have uncovered sites where the original celestial blueprint, it seems, missed the mark. Walls were carefully dismantled and rebuilt a few degrees off their original course. Doorways were narrowed or entirely filled in, only for new apertures to be opened in adjacent walls. At Stonehenge, the Great Sarsen Circle itself shows signs of adjustment, with some stones being repositioned slightly over time. These are not signs of failure, but of a deeper, more profound success. They reveal that these structures were not simply built and abandoned as symbolic gestures. They were active, living observatories, maintained and refined across generations by keepers who were watching the sky just as intently as their ancestors had. Each modification is a fossilized moment of realization, a quiet admission that the first calculation was close, but not quite perfect, followed by the determined effort to make it right. This process of realignment gives us a rare and intimate look into the practical, hands-on work of ancient astronomy. It was a science of patient iteration. A priest might watch for decades, noticing that the solstice sunbeam now struck the edge of the carved marker instead of its center. Perhaps the foundation had settled, or maybe the initial horizon reference had been slightly misjudged. The solution was not to abandon the site, but to recalibrate the instrument. They would adjust the stone, not the expectation. This commitment to precision across centuries transforms our understanding. These monuments become collaborative projects across time, where each generation inherited both the tool and the responsibility to keep it true. The architecture was not a final statement, but an ongoing conversation with the cosmos, one where the sky itself had the final say, and the builders were diligent students, always listening, always learning, and never afraid to correct their work. A stone circle in Britain and a pyramid in Cambodia both capture the solstice sun. This pattern, repeated across continents and oceans, presents one of history's great silent questions. Were these celestial blueprints invented again and again, or whispered across the world? The simplest answer often lies in the sky itself. The urge to mark the sun's turning points is a powerful, almost instinctive human response. Any culture that depends on agriculture will, over generations, notice the sun's journey along the horizon, its pause at the solstices, and its balance at the equinoxes. Building a permanent marker to celebrate that moment of return is a natural, logical step that many societies could take independently. It is a direct conversation with an environment they all share. This is the compelling case for independent discovery, where similar problems under the same sun and stars yield elegantly similar architectural solutions. We see this in the basic solstice alignment. From the sun dagger of Choco Canyon to the corridor of Newgrange, the engineering principle is straightforward. Point a long, dark tunnel at the spot where the sun rises on the shortest day. The celestial stimulus is identical, so the human response converges. Yet, when we move beyond the sun, the plot thickens considerably. The meticulous tracking of the moon's 18.6-year standstill cycle, as seen at Callanish in Scotland, is not an obvious survival-driven observation. It requires a tradition of sustained, multi-generational record-keeping purely for the sake of understanding a complex pattern. The same is true for the precise targeting of Venus at the Karakol, or the encoding of precession in a pyramid shaft. These are not simple responses to environmental stimuli, they are advanced, abstract scientific pursuits. When such sophisticated and specific concepts appear in vastly separated cultures, it forces us to wonder. Could there have been threads of knowledge, fragile and now lost, that traveled ancient trade routes? While direct contact between the Maya and the Egyptians is highly improbable, ideas are astonishing travelers. They can move along the Silk Road, across the Indian Ocean trade winds, or through slow, incremental exchanges between neighboring cultures over centuries. A concept like horizon astronomy, using a distant mountain notch as a celestial marker, is a powerful, portable idea. Once learned, it is a toolkit that can be applied anywhere. This diffusion of principles rather than specific blueprints might explain some of the deeper parallels. Perhaps the most profound insight, however, lies not in proving one theory over the other, but in recognizing what this global phenomenon reveals about us. From the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Mesoamerica to the plains of Cambodia, humanity demonstrated a shared, monumental curiosity. Faced with the vast, incomprehensible clockwork of the heavens, our ancestors in every corner of the globe made the same bold decision. They did not just watch the sky, they built it into the bedrock of their world. They turned their greatest communal efforts, their most durable materials, and their highest artistic achievements into a single project, to make the cosmos comprehensible and to anchor their story within it. This universal impulse to monumentalize our understanding is a powerful testament. It suggests that the drive to seek patterns, to find meaning in the stars, and to leave a permanent record of that search is not a cultural trait but a human one. Whether invented independently or shared along forgotten paths, these stone clocks are chapters in the same grand story, written in the common language of alignment, light, and shadow. The heel stone at Stonehenge stands as a silent sentinel, waiting for dawn on the longest day. For an observer standing in the center of the stone circle, the midsummer sun would have risen directly over this massive pillar, framed perfectly within the monument's architecture. This was not a passive observation. It was a choreographed communal event where the very design of the site directed human attention and movement, focusing an entire community on a singular moment of cosmic alignment. The architecture provided the stage, and the celestial event provided the script for a profound ritual performance. In this way, the act of precise astronomical observation was completely intertwined with ceremony. The observatory was not a laboratory in our modern sense, it was a sacred theater. The rising sun was the lead actor, the stones were the set, and the gathered people were both audience and participants in a drama that reaffirmed their entire world. This fusion of ritual and observation served vital, layered purposes for the society. First, it transformed abstract knowledge into shared experience. When a priest or elder predicted the solstice sunrise, and the community witnessed it happening exactly as foretold through the stone frame, it validated the entire system of knowledge and the authority of its keepers. It demonstrated a tangible connection to the cosmic order. Second, these scheduled celestial events became powerful social glue. Gathering at a site like Stonehenge or the Pyramid of the Sun at Teotihuacan for a solstice was likely a massive festival. People would travel from distant regions, creating a temporary city of pilgrims. There would be trade, the sharing of news, marriages arranged, and disputes settled. The ritual renewal of the cosmos went hand in hand with the renewal of social bonds and alliances across the land. The architecture itself was the director of this ceremony. It choreographed where people should stand, where they should look, and even how they should move. The long avenue leading to Stonehenge, for instance, funnels participants toward the circle, building anticipation. The central altar or heel stone alignment creates a focal point, ensuring everyone's gaze is directed east at the critical moment. In Mesoamerican pyramids, the steep staircases force a physical ascent, mirroring the symbolic climb toward the heavens, culminating in a ceremony at the summit timed with a zenith sunset. This physical engagement made the cosmic event personal and unforgettable. It was not something they were told about, it was something they did, something they felt in the chill of the dawn and saw with their own eyes as light flooded a dark corridor or glinted off a golden altar. Ultimately, these performances bridge the perceived gap between the earthly and the divine in the most tangible way possible. The ceremony was a scheduled meeting with the gods, a time when the veil between worlds was believed to be thinnest. By using architecture to capture a specific beam of light or frame a particular star, the community could participate in that meeting. They weren't just worshipping a sun god in the abstract, they were standing in the god's presence at its moment of triumph or turning. This gave the cyclical, sometimes intimidating, forces of nature a rhythm and a predictability that could be celebrated and relied upon. The ritual, grounded in precise observation, turned the vast, impersonal cosmos into a neighbor with whom they had an annual appointment. It was a way of making the universe feel like home. Yet, this deep integration of science and spirit invites a final, haunting reflection. What happens when the ceremonies stop, when the people who understood the choreography are gone, and the stage is left empty, waiting for a performance that never comes? The stones were not the only surface that could capture the sky. For several ancient cultures, the most perfect celestial mirror was not polished granite, but still dark water. By integrating pools, canals, and sacred wells into their observatories, these architects added a fluid, reflective dimension to their sky tracking, solving practical problems and deepening symbolic connections in one elegant stroke. Water became a living, shimmering instrument. The core principle is beautifully simple. Observing a star or the sun directly at its zenith, the point directly overhead, is physically awkward. Tilting your head straight back is unstable, and precise measurement is nearly impossible. A still pool of water, however, solves this perfectly. By looking down into the dark water, an observer sees a stable, reflected image of the sky above. The zenith point is now conveniently at the bottom of the pool, framed and still, allowing for exact observation. This transformed a humble reservoir into a precision tool for marking the sun's zenith passages, those days when it passes directly overhead, a critical event for calendars in tropical regions. We see this ingenious application in grand design. The magnificent Sun Temple at Konark in India, conceived as a gigantic stone chariot for the solar god, was originally set beside a large, rectangular pool. While the temple's intricate stone wheels and sculptures track the sun's movement through shadows, the pool would have served as a reflective plane. On key days, the noonday sun would have been captured perfectly in its watery mirror, doubling the solar deity's presence and creating a breathtaking union of architecture, element, and cosmos. Similarly, the Maya of the Yucatan Peninsula turned their landscape itself into an observatory through their sacred cenotes. These deep, natural sinkholes filled with groundwater were portals to the underworld or Xibalba. Their still, dark surfaces at night became perfect mirrors for the stars. A priest gazing down would see the celestial realm reflected in the waters of the underworld, a profound visual metaphor merging the heavens, the earth, and the realm below into a single, coherent cosmos. This was astronomy through a liquid lens. The use of water added a dynamic, almost magical quality to the tracking. Unlike a static stone alignment, the surface of a pool is sensitive and alive, rippling with the wind, changing with the rain. To use it as an instrument required understanding its calm moments, turning transient stillness into a window for measurement. Symbolically, the connection was profound. Water was the essence of life, the critical element for agriculture and survival. By linking the cycles of the stars and the sun to pools and wells, these cultures were weaving celestial patterns into the very source of their sustenance. The sun's zenith passage, often tied to the arrival of rains, was not just seen in the sky, but witnessed in the life-giving water itself. The ritual likely involved moments where the reflected sun seemed to dive into the pool, or where the star-studded night sky appeared to lie beneath one's feet, making the cosmic cycle tangible and intimately connected to community survival. This reflective technique represents a different kind of architectural thinking. It is not about constructing a massive, permanent frame, but about harnessing a natural, responsive element. The architecture provided the sacred context, the temple platform overlooking the pool, the ceremonial stairway leading down to the cenote, but the primary instrument was the water itself. It was a partnership with the environment that acknowledged both its utility and its spiritual power, creating an observatory that was as fluid and reflective as the sky it sought to understand. Yet the most precise celestial instrument ever built was one you could hold in your hand. The invention of tools like the Astrolabe, an intricate bronze disc engraved with star maps and rotating rings, marked a quiet revolution. For the first time, the complex motions of the heavens could be modeled not in 10-ton stone, but in a portable, personal device. This was a profound turning point. The immense communal effort of encoding knowledge into architecture began to give way to a new paradigm, specialized, instrument-based science conducted by individuals. The cosmos was no longer something you had to gather at a temple to witness. It was something you could calculate, measure, and carry with you. This shift changed humanity's relationship with the stars from an embodied, architectural experience to a more abstract, mathematical one. The focus moved from building a permanent clock for the entire community to crafting a precise tool for the trained mind. We see echoes of the old ways lingering, of course. The great Gothic cathedrals of the Middle Ages were often aligned to the rising sun on the feast day of their patron saint, a sacred nod to solar symbolism. But the deep, generational project of engineering a building to track the moon's 18-year standstill or a star's 26,000-year precessional drift, that grand ambition faded. The knowledge of the cosmos was migrating from the public square into the private study. from the language of aligned doorways into the language of equations and ephemeris tables. This was not a loss of wonder, but a transfer of method. The monumental observatory had served its purpose brilliantly. It had stabilized celestial knowledge for millennia, allowing patterns to be recognized and traditions to be built. But once those patterns were understood, the next step was to refine them, to predict planetary motions with even greater accuracy, tasks for which a portable astrolabe or a later telescope was simply more practical. This transition marks the move from public cosmology, where the entire society's rhythm was tied to a stone calendar, to professional astronomy, a dedicated field of study. The sky was becoming data as much as destiny. It makes you wonder, what did we gain in precision, and what might we have left behind in that collective, awe-filled moment when the sun first struck the altar? That quiet shift from monument to handheld instrument carries a question forward into our own time. We live in an age of disposable technology, where the smartphone in your pocket will be obsolete within a handful of years, and entire digital archives can vanish with a single server failure. Against this backdrop, the ancient observatory stands as a radical counterpoint, a testament to a different kind of intelligence, one built for permanence. These structures were not designed for quarterly reports or election cycles, but for the slow, majestic turning of celestial gears that measure time in centuries and millennia. In their patient stone, we find a profound lesson in sustainability and long-term thinking that speaks directly to our modern moment. The builders of Newgrange or the Karakol were engaged in the ultimate intergenerational project. They invested immense communal resources into a machine whose full utility they themselves might never witness, trusting that their children's children would understand its purpose and benefit from its precision. This is a staggering act of faith in the future, a commitment to legacy over immediate convenience. It forces us to ask what we, as a global society, are building today that will still be speaking clearly to humanity 500 or even 5,000 years from now. Are we encoding our most vital knowledge in forms that can endure, or are we leaving behind a digital silence? This ancient wisdom is not lost. It is being rediscovered by a new generation of architects and planners. A movement sometimes called Astro-Architecture or cosmic design is consciously reviving these principles. Modern buildings are now being designed with precise solar alignments, not for ritual but for sustainability. Strategic window placement and building orientation can dramatically reduce energy consumption by maximizing passive solar heating in winter and minimizing it in summer, using the sun's ancient path as a free source of climate control. Some designs even incorporate light shafts and atria that channel specific beams of sunlight on solstices or equinoxes, creating public spectacles of light that reconnect urban dwellers with the natural rhythm of the year. These are not mere aesthetic choices, they are practical applications of a very old idea that our built environment should have a meaningful, energy-efficient dialogue with the cosmos. Beyond energy, this long-term perspective challenges our entire approach to knowledge and culture. The ancient observatory was a library in stone, its data secure against fire, flood, and the fragility of human memory. In an era of climate uncertainty and digital vulnerability, what are our modern equivalents? Initiatives like the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, buried deep in an Arctic mountain to preserve the world's agricultural biodiversity, or projects aiming to inscribe humanity's foundational texts on ultra-durable materials, echo that same ancient impulse to build a legacy that can survive the unexpected turns of history. The true lesson of the celestial architects is not about aligning stones to stars. It is about aligning our actions with a timescale that honors those who will come after us. It asks us to build and create with materials, both physical and cultural, that are worthy of the future. In a world often focused on the next news cycle or the next financial quarter, these silent stone clocks remind us to lift our gaze. They ask us to consider what truths are so important that we would carve them into the bedrock of our world, ensuring they outlast not just us, but the very languages we speak. What story, what piece of hard-won wisdom would you encode for the ages? We can now stand in that empty theater and witness the performance for ourselves. Digital tools grant us a form of time travel, letting us peel back the layers of precession and see the ancient sky as the builders saw it. Software like Stellarium can roll back the celestial clock with astonishing precision, accounting for the slow 26,000-year wobble of the Earth's axis. With a few clicks, we can set the virtual date to, say, 1,500 years before the Common Era and look east from the Giza Plateau. Suddenly, the star Thuban shines brightly at the north celestial pole, and we can watch as its light, now lost to the void of space, would have streamed directly down the Great Pyramid's narrow northern shaft. This is digital archaeoastronomy, and it transforms our understanding from theoretical guesswork into visual, experiential fact. It allows researchers to rigorously test alignment hypotheses. Was a temple window truly aimed at the rising point of Venus on a specific ceremonial date? The simulation can show us, providing a clear yes or no based on mathematical reality rather than romantic speculation. More than that, these reconstructions make abstract concepts beautifully tangible. We can watch a time lapse over centuries, seeing the pole star's title pass from Thuban to Kochab and finally to our Polaris, visualizing the very drift that ancient astronomers worked so hard to track and commemorate in stone. This technology does more than serve academics, it offers a profound connection. Anyone with a computer can now stand, virtually, in the center of the Callanish Stones on a clear night during a major lunar standstill. We can watch the full moon rise, perfectly framed between those ancient pillars, and feel a shiver of recognition at the engineered spectacle. We can experience the winter solstice dawn at Newgrange from inside the chamber, witnessing that slender blade of light creep down the dark passageway to illuminate the floor. This digital revival allows us to see the celestial triggers, the specific alignments of sun, moon, and star that were the entire reason for a wall's angle or a window's placement. It closes the loop between the silent, static architecture and the dynamic, living sky it was built to capture. We are no longer just analyzing ruins, we are reactivating their primary function, letting the simulated starlight fall once more on the altars built to receive it. A single line drawn across a map can ignite a firestorm of debate. The study of these ancient alignments is a vibrant and sometimes contentious field, where brilliant insights and bold speculations often walk a very fine line. It is a necessary reminder that interpreting the silent stones is not a simple act of reading, but an ongoing conversation filled with healthy skepticism and passionate disagreement. One of the most famous and hotly debated ideas is the Orion correlation theory. Proposed in the 1990s, it suggests the three main pyramids at Giza are not randomly placed, but form a precise terrestrial map of the three stars in Orion's belt, with the Nile River mirroring the Milky Way. Proponents argue the match is too perfect to be coincidence. A grand statement linking the pharaoh's eternal resting places directly to a constellation associated with the god Osiris. For many, it is a compelling, poetic vision that seems to unlock a hidden layer of meaning in one of the world's most mysterious sites. Mainstream Egyptologists and archaeoastronomers, however, raise significant methodological concerns. They point out that while the pyramids do roughly mirror the star's pattern, the fit is not mathematically precise when you account for the exact positions of the stars in the ancient sky. More critically, they argue that the theory relies on selecting specific monuments and ignoring others in the vast Giza necropolis to make the pattern work. It is, they suggest, a classic case of pattern recognition where the human mind, eager to find meaning, can impose a connection that the original builders may never have intended. This debate is not about dismissing wonder, but about upholding rigorous standards of evidence. The controversy highlights a crucial principle in this field: the difference between a statistically significant alignment and a symbolic resonance. A statistically significant alignment is one that appears repeatedly across a culture's architecture, far beyond what random chance would allow. The Maya's consistent orientation of buildings to solar zenith passages is a strong example. A symbolic pattern, however, might be a unique, one-time configuration that feels meaningful to us but lacks the repetitive, engineered precision of a true observatory function. Engaging with these controversies is not a sign of a broken field but of a healthy one. It shows the scientific process at work, where bold claims are met with scrutiny, evidence is weighed, and interpretations are constantly refined. This dynamic tension pushes researchers to develop ever better tools and methodologies, from more precise laser scanning to sophisticated statistical analysis of entire ceremonial landscapes. It reminds us that our understanding of the past is not a static monument, but a living, evolving story. Each new discovery, each debated theory, adds another piece to the puzzle, guiding us closer to hearing the true story these ancient builders etched not just in stone, but in the very alignment of their world with the heavens. A stone window in Malta frames nothing but empty sky. Across the ancient world, scattered among the celestial masterpieces we can now decode, lie architectural riddles that stubbornly refuse to give up their secrets. These are the unexplained alignments, the odd angles and peculiar apertures in megalithic temples and remote ruins that do not point to any obvious solstice, equinox, or bright star in our current reconstructions of the ancient sky. They stand as silent, unanswered questions etched in stone, reminding us that for all our sophisticated software and statistical analysis, we may only be perceiving a fraction of the knowledge these builders sought to preserve. These enigmatic features represent the thrilling, unfinished frontier of archaeoastronomy. Take, for instance, the mysterious temples of Malta, like Haga Kim or Mnajdra. These structures are filled with precise solar and lunar alignments, yet they also contain smaller, oddly placed apertures and niches that defy easy celestial explanation. One theory suggests they could have been used to track the movements of specific bright stars that have since faded or shifted position due to precession beyond a recognizable point. Another possibility is that they mark the appearance of now extinct variable stars, celestial bodies that brightened and dimmed in cycles known only to those ancient observers. Perhaps they were not meant for the predictable cycles at all, but for the unpredictable, the awe-inspiring. Could a narrow slit have been designed to frame the sudden, brilliant arrival of a great comet, a once-in-a-lifetime event that demanded a permanent marker in the community's sacred space? Or maybe the target was not celestial but terrestrial. An alignment might point to a distant, sacred mountain peak, a spring, or the location of a neighboring tribe's ceremonial site, weaving a map of social and spiritual geography into the temple's very walls. These possibilities open a dizzying array of interpretations, where astronomy blends with mythology, geography, and even long-forgotten historical events. The challenge for modern researchers is immense. Without written records to accompany these stones, the context is lost. We are left with the alignment itself, a vector pointing into a void of missing information. This forces a beautifully interdisciplinary approach. Solving these puzzles requires more than just astronomy software. It demands a deep dive into local anthropology, studying the folklore and land use patterns of descendant communities. It requires environmental archaeology to understand how the landscape itself may have changed, perhaps where a river once flowed or a forest once stood that is now gone. It needs a willingness to consider that our modern categories of science, religion, and geography were seamlessly fused in the ancient mind. An alignment might have served multiple purposes simultaneously, marking a star's rise, a mountain's silhouette, and an ancestor's journey in a single, profound line of sight. Each unexplained feature is a puzzle box from the past, and the key is likely a combination lock requiring several disciplines to turn in unison. This is what keeps the field vibrantly alive. The solved alignments give us confidence in the method, but the unsolved ones fuel the imagination and drive the science forward. They are a humbling reminder that the ancient sky was a richer, more detailed tapestry than our models may ever fully capture, and that the builder's intentions were woven from a complex cultural thread we are still learning to follow. The greatest lesson they offer is not frustration, but invitation, a silent challenge cast across millennia for future generations to keep looking, keep measuring, and keep wondering. Their names are lost to us, carved away by wind and rain, but their hands set every stone. Behind every solstice window and every star-aligned shaft stood a person, a master of an art so profound it wove together the fabric of the sky with the foundations of the earth. These were the Anonymous Astronomer-Architects, the unsung geniuses who lived at the crossroads of science and spirit. To understand their work is to recognize a mind of remarkable integration, a thinker for whom the sacred, the practical, and the beautiful were not separate categories, but different faces of the same eternal truth. Imagine the depth of knowledge held by one such individual. They were first a priest steeped in the mythology and ritual calendar of their people. They knew which gods rode the sun's chariot and which stars marked the gates of the underworld. Yet they were also a scientist, a meticulous observer who could track the moon's slow drift along the horizon for 18 years, recording its subtle pauses with nothing more than a notch on a stick and a lifetime of memory. They were an engineer who understood the properties of granite versus limestone, who knew how to move a 50-ton block without it fracturing, and how to set it on a foundation that would not settle for millennia. And finally, they were an artist whose sense of proportion and harmony ensured that the final structure was not just accurate, but awe-inspiring, a form that lifted the human spirit toward the very heavens it modeled. This synthesis of roles is what made their achievement possible. A purely religious leader might have demanded a grand temple, but not one aligned to a 1-in-18-year lunar event. A mere engineer could have built a stable pyramid, but not one with shafts pointing to specific long-dead pole stars. It was the fusion of these disciplines that birthed the celestial machine. Their knowledge was not held in libraries, but in living tradition, passed from master to apprentice through years of patient guidance. An elder would point to a distant mountain notch at dawn, explaining not just its celestial meaning, but the story of the god born from that light, the song to be sung when it appeared, and the precise geometric method for transcribing that line onto the temple floor plan. This was holistic education in its truest sense. Consider the sheer, patient labor of their process. Before a single stone was quarried, they likely began a multi-decade campaign of observation. They would have spent years confirming the solstice points, perhaps using simple gnomons and horizon markers, trusting their eyes and their records over a lifetime. Only with that data secured could they begin the translation, using ropes and pegs to lay out the sacred geometry on the ground, turning observed angles into physical lines. Then came the Herculean task of construction, directing teams to extract, transport, and raise monoliths with hair's breadth precision. The final act, perhaps the placement of a lintel stone that would complete a light slot, must have been a moment of profound tension and triumph. Would the dawn light, years from now, strike true? Their entire life's work culminated in that engineered moment, a gift to a future they would never see. We honor pharaohs and kings whose names are inscribed in gold, but these master builders worked in anonymity, their signature found only in the perfection of the alignment itself. Their legacy is not a boastful stele, but a silent, functioning instrument. This shifts our perspective from marveling at a mysterious culture to respecting specific, brilliant individuals. It makes their work more human and in doing so more astonishing. They were not magicians but masters of integrated design, thinking in scales of time and space that challenge our modern, specialized minds. Their vanished names do not diminish their stature, it elevates the work. The monument itself becomes their identity, a testament to a mind that could hold the cosmos and a quarry in a single, coherent thought, and then build a bridge between them for all time. Two great civilizations built stone bridges to the stars, but the paths they took were worlds apart. The Egyptians and the builders of ancient Mesoamerica, from the Maya to the Aztecs, shared that profound impulse to merge architecture with the cosmos, yet their cultural visions sculpted that impulse into strikingly different forms. By placing their approaches side by side, we see not a single story of ancient astronomy, but a fascinating dialogue between two distinct philosophies of time, eternity, and humanity's place in the universe. Egyptian celestial architecture speaks a language of linear permanence. Their focus was often on the unchanging, the eternal. They looked to the solar cycle, yes, but with a particular emphasis on the circumpolar stars, the so-called imperishable ones that never set below the horizon, forever circling the north celestial pole. This mirrored their core cultural priority, the desire for an enduring afterlife, a state of perfect, unchanging existence. Their architectural solutions reflect this. They favored massive, solid structures like the pyramids and rock-cut tombs designed to last for eternity. Alignments were often internal and linear. Think of the long, straight shafts burrowing deep within the Great Pyramid, aimed like sight tubes at specific stars. The structure itself was a sealed, permanent machine, a vessel designed to project the soul of the pharaoh along a one-way path to join the circumpolar gods. The architecture was a conduit for a singular, eternal journey. Its alignments fixed on celestial landmarks of permanence cross the ocean to Mesoamerica, and the architectural language shifts dramatically. Here, time was not a linear path to eternity, but a great rotating wheel of cycles. Their astonishingly complex calendar systems wove together the 260-day sacred round and the 365-day solar year, creating larger cycles like the 52-year calendar round. Their astronomy served this intricate temporal model. Instead of internal shafts, they built pyramidal platforms with temples on top. The architecture itself became the instrument. The stepped sides, the staircases, the specific doorways and corners of the temple at the summit were all calibrated. At Chichen Itza, the Pyramid of El Castillo is a masterpiece of this philosophy. On the equinoxes, the setting sun casts a shadow along the northern staircase, creating the illusion of a serpent slithering down to earth, a direct manifestation of the feathered serpent god Kukulkan. This was not about a one-way journey, but about a public, communal witnessing of time's cyclical renewal. Their alignments also tracked Venus with obsessive precision, as its cycles were woven into their mythology of war and rebirth. The architecture was an open-air stage for a cosmic drama that repeated itself season after season, cycle after cycle. This contrast in stone reveals a deeper contrast in worldviews. Egyptian architecture embodies the ideal of eternity, a frozen moment of alignment meant to endure unchanged forever. Mesoamerican architecture embodies the concept of cyclic time, a dynamic, participatory event meant to be witnessed and celebrated again and again. One culture built sealed monuments for a pharaoh's solitary ascent to the imperishable stars. The other built theatrical platforms where the entire community could watch the serpent of time descend and be reborn. Both were brilliant solutions to the same fundamental problem, how to anchor human life to the cosmos. But their answers, shaped by their deepest beliefs about life, death, and time itself, gave us the enduring, silent pyramid and the dynamic, theatrical Temple Mount. One sought to conquer time by building a forever machine. The other sought to harmonize with time by building a clock for the ages. The language they spoke was itself a blueprint of the cosmos. In many ancient cultures, the very word for a sacred building revealed its true purpose. The Sumerian term for temple, also meant house, but specifically the house of a god, a microcosm of the divine realm. In Mesoamerica, the pyramid was not just a structure, it was a sacred mountain. This was not poetic metaphor, but a literal statement of function. To call a temple a mountain was to declare it an axis mundi, the world center, the fixed point where the earthly and celestial realms met and communicated. This profound integration of sky and stone was cemented into the very symbols they used and the stories they told, ensuring the knowledge would survive even if the precise observational techniques were forgotten. The most universal architectural form, the pyramid, is the clearest example of this symbolic language. From the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of Guatemala, its shape is no accident. The pyramid is a solidified ray of sunlight, a ramp for the soul's ascent, a model of the primordial mound that emerged from the waters of chaos at creation. Its four sides often aligned with the cardinal directions, making the building a compass rose in stone, anchoring the community to the fundamental order of the cosmos. Similarly, the spires of Gothic cathedrals and the domes of Byzantine churches are not merely aesthetic triumphs. They are architectural declarations of the same axis mundi principle. The spire reaches upward, a stone finger pointing to heaven, while the dome represents the vault of the sky itself, often painted with stars and celestial figures. Entering such a space was to step inside a model of the universe, a constant, silent reminder of one's place within a grand, designed order. This symbolic thinking did not just describe buildings, it organized the heavens themselves. Consider the zodiac. What is it, if not an architectural blueprint imposed upon the stars? The ecliptic, the sun's path through the sky, becomes the central hallway of a great celestial temple. The 12 constellations along that path become the supporting pillars, the houses of this cosmic architecture. The movement of planets through these houses was narrated as a story, a divine drama unfolding within a structured, sacred space. This is why temple rituals and astrological events were so deeply intertwined. The ceremony on earth was a mirror of the celestial activity within the heavenly temple's rooms. This deep encoding into language and symbol served as the ultimate backup system for their cosmological knowledge. A society might be conquered, its priestly class dispersed, its precise astronomical records lost. But if the word for temple still meant world mountain, and if the king was still crowned beneath a star-painted dome, the core idea remained. The meaning was preserved in the cultural DNA, passed down through myth, art, and ritual practice. The great epic of Gilgamesh describes a sacred cedar mountain that reaches the heavens. The Bible describes Jacob's ladder connecting earth and sky. These are not mere stories, they are the narrative echoes of the axis mundi, the same concept that gave us the pyramid and the spire. This legacy proves that the ancient project was always about two parallel constructions. They were building with limestone and granite, yes, but they were simultaneously building with metaphor and meaning. The physical observatory tracked the cycles, while the symbolic language explained why those cycles mattered. One was a machine for measurement, the other was a machine for making sense. When the solstice light no longer struck the altar because a wall had fallen, the story of the sun god's rebirth lived on. When the star-aligned shaft pointed to empty space, the myth of the soul's stellar journey endured. The stone could crumble, but the symbol, woven into the fabric of language and thought, could last forever. This reveals their most profound insight, that to truly make something permanent, you must build it twice, once in the world and once in the mind. The final frontier for understanding these ancient sites is not on the ground, but in orbit. A quiet revolution is unfolding in how we see these monuments, powered by satellites and a remarkable technology called LiDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. This tool works by sending millions of laser pulses from an aircraft down through forest canopies or across desert sands, mapping the ground surface with astonishing precision and stripping away everything that has grown or been built over it. What it reveals are ghost landscapes, vast networks of hidden causeways, plazas, and structures that have been invisible for centuries. This changes everything. That solitary pyramid on a hill is no longer isolated. Through this new lens, we see it was just one carefully placed node in a sprawling regional grid of alignments, a single cog in a celestial machine that covered dozens of square miles. Entire ceremonial landscapes are coming into view, showing how ancient cultures engineered not just buildings but whole territories to mirror the heavens. A processional road might run dead straight for miles, pointing directly to a solstice sunrise point on a distant mountain. What seemed like a local temple now emerges as the central hub in a vast territorial observatory. This technology is proving that their architectural integration with the sky was far more ambitious and systematic than we ever dreamed. But this is not just about looking back. The lessons encoded in these stones are suddenly, urgently forward-looking. As we seriously plan for a long-term human presence on the Moon or Mars, we face the same fundamental challenges those ancient architects did. How do you build a habitat in an alien, barren landscape and maintain a connection to time, orientation, and a sense of place? There, without our familiar 24-hour day-night cycle or a recognizable North Star, the ancient principles become critical survival skills. Future lunar bases will need built-in celestial calendars. Windows or light shafts could be designed to track the Earth's phases or the Sun's slow crawl across the stark lunar horizon, providing a natural, reliable timekeeping system independent of fragile electronics. The structure itself, like the pyramids of old, would become a permanent clock. The very orientation of a Martian habitat could be aligned to the rising of the planet's moons or the Sun on a significant date, creating a psychological anchor, a way to root human consciousness in the rhythms of a new world. This transforms the study of ancient observatories from a purely historical curiosity into a vital source of inspiration. It is a dialogue across millennia, where the problems of marking time and space in a hostile environment are being solved again, but now with the added wisdom of those who first mastered the art. The ancient builders were experts in psychological resilience through design, using architecture to combat disorientation and foster a sense of cosmic belonging. Future space architects are now asking the same questions. How do you design a home that tells you what time it is, not with a digital display but with a beam of light on the wall? How do you create a sense of ceremony and season in a world without autumn or spring? The answers may well be written in the alignments of stones we have only just begun to fully see from the sky. Our journey to understand their past is quietly becoming a blueprint for our own future. From the solstice light at Newgrange to the Venus alignments of the Karakol, we have journeyed through the world of ancient observatories, discovering how architecture was masterfully integrated with long-term sky tracking. These structures were more than stone, they were frozen astronomy, calendars in rock, and theaters for cosmic ritual. They teach us about human ingenuity, patience, and our eternal desire to find our place in the universe. As we look at our modern world, perhaps we can be inspired by this long-term vision, building not just for today but for the cycles of tomorrow. If this exploration of lost sciences resonated with you, share your thoughts on which ancient observatory fascinates you most in the comments below, and subscribe for more journeys into historical mystery.